Hello, you got Dan with Five Wide here. Calling in to talk to us is Jared. He's having some Wi-Fi issues, so hopefully we'll be able to see his beautiful face soon. And we also have our main man, Edin. He's calling all the way in from Bosnia. It's impressive.
Just straight across the country,
Yep.
the world. Just kidding. I'm in New York, Syracuse, New York.
All right. So what we're going to start off with is we're going to do our daily Twitter poll question. So if you aren't following us on Twitter, you should do that. But for those who haven't, I will do a quick read of what the question is. And it is you have the number 2 fantasy spot. And Christian McCaffrey is off the board because I feel like every intelligent fantasy football person is going to draft Christian McCaffrey first. Who do you take? The options are Barkley, Elliott, Michael Thomas, or someone else. So we're going to give everybody a couple of seconds here to write down their answer. Obviously, Jared is not going to write down his answer. He's going to say it out loud. And then we're going to show him in 5 seconds here. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. So me and Edin put in Barkley. And Jared, can you tell us who you wrote down?
I'm going to go with Ezekiel Elliott.
All right. We got Jared going with Elliott. He's bucking the trend. So let's start with Jared first. Why'd you pick Elliott?
All right. Well, Zeke, he's just not that Barkley or the other one isn't, but Zeke Elliott is just a household name. He's just a beast. He doesn't seem to get injured very often. And, he didn't even have training camp last year. He was just in Cabo, and he came back and did really well while the offense seemed to struggle a little bit. But, they're the best line in football, they say. So I think Zeke's going to have a great year.
I mean, I think everybody here would agree that those are good points. I didn't pick Elliott, and either did Edin, but I don't think anyone would say it was a terrible choice. Edin, you want to rebut Jared's pick at Elliott and say why you did Barkley?
Yeah, I did Barkley, and I'm a Cowboys fan over here, so it's kind of pains me to say. I don't know. Fantasy, I think I gotta put your teams to the side. I'm choosing Barkley just because of talent. I think the upside is just massive, especially on that team. He's do-it-all running back. Not saying that Zeke isn't. The only thing that's keeping me from Zeke is the coaching change. No idea how that's going to pan out. Mike McCarthy likes to usually run it through the quarterbacks. At least, I don't know. I know he had Aaron Rodgers, so that was an excuse to just keep throwing the ball. But it just gives me a little worry, and I don't want to gamble on my second spot here. And there is a little gamble with Barkley. The only other person I almost picked was Delvin Cook. I wouldn't pick Michael Thomas. I really wouldn't pick a receiver. I didn't want to pick Zeke because of those points. But Barkley seems like a safe choice to me here.
Yeah, I agree with almost everything you're saying there. I avoided Elliott mainly because Mike McCarthy's only had one running back in his career finish in the top 5. So that kind of scares me. They pass the ball a lot. So that they're going to keep passing the ball. They got really good receivers in Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper. They've got a solid quarterback in Dak Prescott. The Giants, I think, are going to have a healthier offense this year, which should actually help Barkley more. You might argue they'll take away a little bit from his touches, but there won't be as many 8 in the box as he saw last year. Also, you've got Daniel Jones learning a new offense in only a second year in the league. So I think they're going to rely a little bit heavier on the run. And I just love how Barkley started and ended the season. I know he was injured a little bit in between, but he started the season averaging 10.9 yards a carry in game 1, then 5.9. And he finished the season with 4.7, 8.6, 5.4. His least amount of rushing yards in all of that was 92 on 17 carries. And he had a 22 carry, 189 yard game against the Redskins, and a very impressive 107 yards on 18 carries against the Bills, who have a great defense. I don't even think. I think they were probably second, third best defense in football last year, behind obviously New England and probably San Francisco. So to put up 107 yards against that defense is something else. So Jared, any luck with the Wi-Fi?
Well, I plugged everything back in, and signing in. I can get onto the network, but it doesn't look like it's letting me load anything.
That's far from great.
Looks like I get to call Spectrum again.
All right.
Great.
Let's see if we can FaceTime you so people can see your beautiful face. All right. Jared.
By the way, I can't hear Edin.
Yeah, I know. I've got my headphones in, but I can't unplug it because my headphones have the mic.
Let's keep it going, baby. Let's keep it going.
I would say try to watch it on YouTube. Obviously, you're having issues with your internet, so I don't know how great that would be. How about you just tell us your top 5 fantasy free agency moves, and I'll unplug the headphones so that you can hear Edin's comeback, and then I'll plug them back in when I talk.
I think we should go like everyone says their 5th, and everyone says their 4th, and we just go down the line like that.
Wait.
Okay.
You muted yourself, Boone. You're muted. Oh.
That he thinks we should go. Everyone do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and count backwards. So, Jared, how about you start off and you tell us your number 5?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
I can't hear you. Why you muted yourself again?
Stephon Diggs to the Bills.
Could you hear what he said, Edin? Stephon Diggs?
Yes, I don't know. Yeah.
Keep going.
We're good.
And what?
Obviously, you've seen what he did on the Vikings, and Josh Allen. He made John Brown look like an all-star. I mean, he's really good, but he made John Brown look like one of the best receivers in the league, arguably. And I mean, it's John Brown. So imagine what he could do with Stephon Diggs. He seems hungry after that last season in Minnesota. They relied heavily on the run, and I think Diggs came out of it real hungry. So I think that's going to be a big deal up there in Buffalo, having Stephon Diggs. So that's my number 5.
I agree with that. That's a good pick. Let's go to Edin and see what his number 5 is.
Let's see. Stephon Diggs. We match on that one there. So no, I definitely picked Stephon. I think he's going to open up their offense. John Brown is a burner too, but I think Stephon Diggs is just a great route runner. He's just an overall complete wide receiver, a true number 1. Honestly, I almost had him higher, or lower in but higher within the ranking. It just, the 3-headed running backs, runners over there at the Buffalo Bills with T.J. Yeldon, Singletary, and Josh Allen. I think he does sometimes more with his feet than he does with the air. Just has me. I'm not sure. I think they're going to run the ball more. I think they're going to be run-heavy offense. I think Stephon Diggs brings a new element to them. It'd be interesting to see how it pans out. I do like Josh Allen, especially as a fantasy player, especially as a competitor. I just think he is inconsistent with making the throws when it matters. I think he does more with his legs, but we'll see how he progresses with a true number 1 here.
And I am going with the same as everybody else. I picked Stefan Diggs at number 5.
We didn't do this. I didn't know anybody's choices beforehand, just so everyone knows.
I actually wrote an article on my top 10, so you can go. I posted this a while ago, and I had Josh Allen gets his deep threat and Diggs as number 5. I view this from a fantasy perspective. I think you're going to look at something similar to what you saw with Doug Baldwin and Russell Wilson early on. I think Josh Allen reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson. Maybe not quite as good, but he does a lot with his feet. He's not quite as accurate, but he's got an absolute cannon like Russell Wilson. And with Stefan Diggs' speed down the field, I think when Josh Allen gets in trouble, makes a couple guys miss and hurls it deep to Stefan Diggs, that's going to be some touchdowns here and there. Like Edin said, I didn't move it higher because I'm not 100% that Josh Allen has the accuracy that like Russell Wilson has and stuff that could move Diggs into that top echelon, top 10, top 5 receiver. I still think he's a late end wide receiver 1 to a high end wide receiver 2. But not a lot of those switch teams or were re-signed this year. So I think Stefan Diggs would be a very good pick if you can get him in the 3rd or 4th round. And I think that was a huge upgrade for the whole Bills offense. You're going to be able to move John Brown to the number 2 and Beasley to number 3, which is more where they actually fit in.
Yeah. I will give you a little pushback. I don't know about that Russell Wilson, Josh Allen.
I guess for my number 4 spot, I'll go with Nick Foles going to the Bears. Nick Foles, he's a capable Super Bowl winning quarterback. And he can put up good numbers if he can stay healthy. I mean, he got injured, game 1 last season? Let's see. I think he could support not only Allen Robinson, but elevate Anthony Miller's game because, the Bears weren't even a contender last season with Mitch Trubisky. So I think with that upgrade, that could open things up for David Montgomery because the passing game will be there. There won't be as many stacked boxes. The question for me is Matt Nagy. He seems to screw up a lot with his play calling and his whatever he's got going on there with his schemes. I don't know what he's trying to do with some of these games, but I think with Nick Foles, it'll just be a more proficient offense in general. So I'm going to go with Nick Foles, number 4.
All right, Edin, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so I guess my question is, when Foles going to the Bears there, you think it's actually going to start? You think they're ditch Mitch, they're on the full ditch Mitch bandwagon, and Nick Foles is going to be a starter day 1, or I guess what are you thinking there?
I think that they should just probably Nick Foles, but they'll probably use them both to see who gets the job.
That's why I didn't even have Nick Foles on my top 10 because I honestly don't believe he's going to be the starter. I don't have a lot of faith in that Bears offense, and I think Matt Nagy has not given up on Mitch Trubisky yet. Otherwise, they would have gone out and gotten Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, somebody who's proven starter. Nick Foles has been very up and down, and the Bears have already said that it's going to be an open competition. So I'm sorry, Jared. I don't like that number 4 pick.
Sure. Well, with Cam Newton, though, that he was Cam Newton. Sorry, I know you got to do the connection thing. He was just released later. So I don't know how it would have played out if the Panthers were a ethical team and they released him sooner. So Cam Newton has a fair shot in the rest of free agency, not do him dirty like that and release him after almost free agency's over with all these QB moves. So it would have been very interesting if Cam Newton was released a month earlier than he was.
I don't know. I think it would have made a huge actual difference, but not for the reasons you're saying. I think the only reason Cam Newton wasn't signed is because you can't do physicals now. I think it has 100% to do with the travel restrictions and the only essential personnel. I think if Cam Newton was released a month before and you could get in and his physical came back good to okay, I don't even think it had to be perfect. He would have been signed. I think he's the best of the available. Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, Nick Foles, Teddy Bridgewater, essentially anyone not named Tom Brady out of those available quarterbacks. I think people would take, and I even could make an argument that I might prefer Cam Newton to Brady just because Brady's 43 and you know you're getting him for 1 or 2 years. What do you think, Jared?
I mean, I agree. There were a lot of questions with Cam Newton and the injury risks with his foot, and I think that people can't really see exactly what's going on with him, so they're really hesitant to sign a guy like that.
Agreed. All right, Edin, who's your number 4?
Wait, Boone, you go, Boone.
I go? All right.
Yeah.
So my number 4 is I actually took the Cleveland Browns getting Jack Conklin. I think I was listening to a podcast the other day, and Derrick Henry averaged almost 1 more yard per carry running to Jack Conklin's side. Jack Conklin's only 25. He's a former Pro Bowler. He was a first-round pick. The guy is a stud, and he's not too old. I think he instantly upgrades the entire Cleveland Browns offense because the Cleveland Browns downgraded their line quite a bit, going out trying to upgrade at receiver and running back with Kareem Hunt and Odell Beckham. And it didn't pan out because obviously their quarterback took a step backwards, Baker, and obviously he didn't have the time. A lot of times he was getting hit, he was getting pressured, he was getting sacked. So I think Jack Conklin opens up a lot more for Nick Chubbs and opens up a lot more for that receiving, especially when they added they added the Falcons tight end, whose name is escaping me right now. Hooper, right?
Yeah, just signed Hooper.
So I think they're going to do a lot of quick hits to Hooper and have an improved offensive line, and that's just going to open the field up for Odell Beckham and Landry in the running game. It's just going to spread opposing defenses out a lot. All right, Edin, do you agree with my number 4, and who do you have at 4?
Oh, yeah. I like to pick Jack Conklin. It's just I don't know what can help that offense. Hopefully it's Jack Conklin. They have so much talent, one of the most talented offenses in the league, for sure, especially how they are on paper right now. I hope Jack Conklin's the answer. I almost honestly added him somewhere just because I just don't know if it's it. I just don't know if he's enough of a difference maker, and I don't know if it's even personnel. I think it's more coaching in my mind than personnel on the team. But I like to pick. So I can go into my number 4. I'm gonna go with, let's keep going, Teddy Bridgewater. I just think Teddy Bridgewater is going to give a lot of. He's going to be an anchor for that team. I think they have a lot of talent on that team, especially with the wide receivers. I think the team's coming together really nicely. Not saying Kyle Allen didn't ball last year. He completely did. He was outstanding. I just think the questions between Kyle Allen, Cam Newton, and not knowing who your quarterback is, not knowing how to get the game plan together, I think slowed them down. Just having a reliable, we know he's our number 1. He's going to be there game in, game out. I think it's going to be so big for them. And I like Teddy Bridgewater. He's not as talented as some of the other people I have on here, but I think just being that anchor just makes that difference.
I agree 100%. I'm a big Teddy Bridgewater fan. I feel like people forget how good he was his first 2 seasons in the league before he had injuries. So yeah, I also have him in my top 5. I'm not going to reveal where or get too much more into that yet. So that we can let Jared tell us what he did for number 3.
All right, number 3. I don't know if you guys are going to agree with this one either, but I have, let's see. might rethink this a little bit before I say it.
Say it. Go with it.
All right,
Confidence.
I'm going to go with Greg Olson, believe it or not.
Oh,
Excuse me?
So, I mean, Russell Wilson loves his tight ends. We all know that. We saw what Will Dissly did last season. We saw what Jacob Hoster did for the remainder of the season before that San Francisco game. He loves his tight ends. He loves them in the end zone. And Greg Olson, he's managed to stay healthy. I mean, he's been in the league since 2007, but he's stayed healthy for a couple seasons now. And I think they'll have that connection, that weird Russell Wilson tight end connection.
I mean, the problem is, number one is Will Dissly's there. I don't know. I love his nickname. I don't know if you guys listen to Fantasy Footballers at all, but they call him Big Montana, and I just love that nickname for him. I think Will Dissly is very good, and he's going to be there, so he's going to obviously eat up some of those targets. I feel like Greg Olson is going to go higher than he should in fantasy because he's Greg Olson. People recognize the name, and Russell Wilson does love his tight ends. I think he's a high risk, high reward player. If he was to fall into one of those later rounds, maybe looking at like 9-10 in a PPR league, I'd go after him, but I don't think I'd take him above the 8th round. Edin, what do you think?
Let's first say I love me some Greg Olson. I've loved him all the way from the Bears through Carolina. I think he's a great player. I think he has a lot to contribute, but not in fantasy. I think he's going to be a great blocker. He's 35 now? Last couple of years, not even 600 yards last year, 2 touchdowns, not even 300 yards the year before. The year before that, not even 200 yards. So I think he's an outstanding player. I think he might be an anchor. I think he might be a little bit of what Jason Witten was for the Cowboys. Just like, hey, I don't know what to do. Let's Greg Olson. Let's throw it to him. But he's not going to be featured in the game plan. So it'd be tough for me to go with him for a fantasy route. But the impact and what Jared was talking about, how he's going to give Russell Wilson the security blanket, I think it's completely viable. I think Russell Wilson will definitely get a lot of use and a lot of happiness working with Greg Olson. He's a tough man. He's going to be really good in the locker room. Just fantasy-wise, I think it's a little tough for me.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there. Jared, you want to make your case at all? You want to argue against us?
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit, I kind of, with Will Dissly's Achilles injuries, I've been kind of worried about his ability to even, come back. So I guess I was kind of thinking that Greg Olson was just going to jump right in. But yeah, that's a really good point about Will Dissly still being there. It's got me rethinking my number 3 position.
I mean, Greg, if you do look in 2015 and 2016, Greg Olson had back-to-back over 1,000-yard seasons. Last year, he had 597 without a great quarterback. He's just 35 at a very physical position, and he plays physical. Greg Olson runs hard downfield. He blocks well, which is why, but hey, you could make the case even at Greg Olson maybe doesn't even improve himself as much as it improves the Seattle offense, because Russell Wilson now has another tight end, especially if Will Dissly's hurt, down in the red zone. And that gives another blocker for Chris Carson, who I'm extremely high on. So do you want me to go now, Edin, or do you want to go?
I can go. It's fine. Let's see. Todd Gurley. I think he still has a lot of fight in him. I don't know what's going on with his injury, 100%. I don't think anybody for sure knows. He seems to be on the up and up, and I have a lot of faith in him. Good old Todd Gurley. I think when he was healthy, clearly one of the most outstanding fantasy players I've seen in a while, besides maybe when Bell and David Johnson were giving a run for his money. I just think on that offense, they're just missing, a good running back. Last time they had a good running game, it showed up really well, I think. They made it to the Super Bowl. I think Todd Gurley has a lot to prove. He's on a 1-year deal. It's a prove deal. So he must be working out like crazy right now. He's looking for a long-term contract. and there's a lot of doubters clearly with him getting only $5 million. I believe maybe it was something different, but I just think he has a lot to prove, and I think he's going to step up, and I think he's going to prove a lot of haters wrong.
So I'm a little up in the air on Todd Gurley. I love that he fell to the Falcons. You've seen what they can do with running backs. I mean, Devontae Freeman had unbelievable seasons with them, and I don't think he's a great talent. Coleman looked really good with them, and then he goes to San Francisco, and I know he battled injuries, but he didn't look great. So I definitely think Todd Gurley, I had him in my way too early ranking at 18. I think he goes to the Falcons, and I think he jumps right up there in the mix. I was thinking about putting him somewhere around 11 or 10 up there with Jacobs and Leonard Fournette. I think he's going to get a lot of catches. He's going to get a lot more touches. They, like I said, they lost their tight end in Hooper, so you're going to have Matt Ryan throwing a lot of those that would have gone to tight ends to the running back. So I think he's got a lot of upside, and he's low risk because he's going to drop quite a bit. You're going to see Todd Gurley, and I'm not positive. We haven't seen average draft positions coming out yet, but I think he's going to fall to a third or fourth round. And I think he's going to be, if healthy, right around a top 10 running back. So I like, not love. I don't know if I'd put it at 3, but yeah, it's a pretty good pick. Any insight, Jared?
Yeah. I'm going to go with a hard pass on Todd Gurley, right? The man, he almost defines injury prone at this point. He's got an arthritic knee, and it's not going to get any better. It's a deterioration of the cartilage in between in between what's holding you up. And he plays hard. He was a beast. He's still good. He's still going to help their offense, but he's not in my top 12. And if he is, I need to get him out of there. I don't know what I was thinking.
He's not in your top 12. Jared consistently bucking the trends today. Do you have a counter to anything Jared said, Edin?
I think it comes down to a little bit what you said, Dan. I think is I would say, pretty high risk, but a very, very high reward. I don't think there's a lot of competition there at the running back spot. I think it's Ito Smith, who's also injury prone. They have an amazing wide receiver game or throwing game in general, especially with Hayden Hurst there now. I just think he's going to show up. I just see him. He's got that fire. He's hungry. He's going to battle through it.
But you're still going to hurt your knee. Like, I had him last year in fantasy, and it was the worst decision I ever made next to picking James Conner. So that's a hard pass for me.
So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's funny. He's going to be one of those people that people are very up in the air with.
I think it's going to be like the years ago when Josh Gordon was almost making a comeback, and you debated where to take him because if he comes back, he's going to be an absolute animal. Although it's a little bit different with the injury compared to what it was before.
Yeah, I agree with the Josh Gordon comparison. That sounds like a pretty legit comparison.
What did he say?
He said that Gurley this year reminds him a lot of Gordon in the past, where you're like, oh, well, he's such a freak athlete. When he's on the field, he's got so much upside, but because of his injuries, or with Gurley or with Gordon, I mean, because of his drug usage, you just don't know if he's actually going to play. So I feel like
it's not like he tore something or, has some kind of other injury that can heal itself. Like that knee is never going to get better. It's more of a matter of keeping it where it's at. So it doesn't get worse, and I don't know if he's going to be able to.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to reveal my number 3, slowly moving it up. And it is Bridgewater. I'm taking Bridgewater at number 3 for a number of reasons. I think it instantly makes Christian McCaffrey better, which is scary. because he's going to face a lot less 8 in the boxes. Plus, Bridgewater loves passing to his running backs. And if Christian McCaffrey puts up anywhere near the season he put up last year again, might be the best back-to-back fantasy season we've ever seen from a running back. I mean, he was absolutely ridiculous.
Boone, you muted yourself.
Sorry, can you hear me? Where did I mute myself at?
Best running back.
Okay, so if he has another season like last year, I think it would be the best 1-2 season of all time for a running back. He had almost 80 more fantasy points in a non-PPR league than the next best running back. And in a PPR league, he had 160 more fantasy points than second place. I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to pass to him a lot. It's going to show less 8 in the boxes. I think they also got Robbie Anderson. And people forget Teddy Bridgewater was a 7th overall pick in 2014. He won Rookie of the Year. The next year, he was a Pro Bowler. Last year, he was 5-0 as a starter. And he has worked with the current offensive coordinator for the Panthers when Joe Brady was with New Orleans. So I really think Bridgewater is going to have a very good season. He's going to be a great mid-round pickup at quarterback. I think he makes every player on the Panthers offense better. I think he makes DJ Moore better. I think he makes Christian McCaffrey better. I think he makes Robbie Anderson better. I just really think that the Panthers offense makes a lot of improvements thanks to that pickup of Teddy Bridgewater. Do you disagree, Jared? I know Edin agrees.
I completely agree. I love that pick.
All right.
I love Teddy Bridgewater. I can't believe the Saints got rid of him.
I guess on that note, let's move to Jared's number 2, seeing as there's no arguments there.
All right, this is a tough one. I'm gonna go with DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals.
At 2, I okay.
Now you got Christian Kirk, you got DeAndre Hopkins. Larry Fitzgerald's still there, right?
Yes.
I think that Murray can easily support all 3 of them, and DeAndre Hopkins. I think that there's going to be so much going on the field that he's going to be able to get open like every time for a guy like Kyler Murray who can run around. He's very Russell Wilson-esque, and I don't know. It's kind of sad. I mean, it was like the iconic duo, Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, kind of like a Mahomes, Tyreek Hill. But yeah, I think that this is a big deal for the Cardinals.
I mean, I love the DeAndre Hopkins pickup. I mean, he put up stats with horrible quarterbacks throwing to him for a long time. I mean, the Texans were bouncing around. They had, gosh, I'm scrolling right through right now to look at it. They've had they had Ryan Fitzpatrick. They had, they had Brian Hoyer, TJ Yates, Brock Osweiler, Matt Schaub, and he put up numbers with these jokes at quarterback. And then they got Watson, and he became top 2 or 3 receiver year in and year out in fantasy. I think he goes there with Kyler Murray, and yeah, I think that's a huge pickup. I think it improves the Cardinals' offense a lot. I'm not going to go too much more because I have DeAndre Hopkins in my top 10 too. Let's hear what Edin has to say.
Yeah, I have DeAndre Hopkins as number 2 as well. I think they didn't really give up anything for him. I love me some, obviously, the trade that happened, but for the Cardinals, they got a receiver. They weren't even using DJ. So DeAndre Hopkins and I feel like Larry Fitzgerald. I feel like, is there any duo that's more has a more sure hands than those two? I'm not really sure. The ball's not being dropped any time in the Cardinals. And I think for the progression, the freshman year or the rookie year in the NFL, it's always, a little ups and downs. In the sophomore year, there's always a big jump. I just see that big jump happening for Kyler Murray, especially now that he has a weapon like DeAndre Hopkins, one of the most talented all-around receivers, not the fastest, not the best at any one of these things, but an all-around high level, every single aspect of the game. I think they're going to do really well, and I'm excited to see that offense go.
Throw in real quick. Baker Mayfield did not make that sophomore jump, so it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, that's true. Hopefully, maybe he has a third year jump for him. I'm hoping.
He's pretty good just for his rookie year.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he had a great rookie year.
He doesn't have to jump too far.
That's true. He does not need to have much of a jump. So I guess I'll go with my number 2, and I'm gonna assume that my number 2 is your guys' number 1. I said the Bucks signing Tom Brady. I didn't put this at number 1 for a couple of reasons. I think that you're going to see Tom Brady have a very similar to what you saw with Brett Favre about a decade back, where Tom Brady has something to prove and he's getting older. I think he's going to have one really good season. And then everything's coming off the rails year 2. He's going to be 43 this season. He'll be 44 next season. I think Bruce Arians loves to sling it. I think they have great receivers around him, and Chris Godwin's and Mike Evans. They put up ridiculous fantasy numbers with Jameis Winston turning the ball over a lot, and Tom Brady's not going to turn the ball over as much. I think Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard all of a sudden become top 5 tight ends, both of them. Tom Brady did it with Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski. He made them top 5 tight ends. I think this might be the best receivers Tom Brady's ever had, if not the best receivers since 2007, and they went 16-0. So it's going to be a heck of a fantasy duo at Godwin and Evans, a heck of a fantasy offense, but they're playing in the toughest division in football. I feel like the Falcons, Saints, Panthers, and Bucks are all constructed to compete. They all could be playoff, maybe even Super Bowl caliber teams. And I just think Tom's getting a little bit older, and they paid him a lot for a 2-year deal that I just can't give that the number 1 spot. So why don't you guys tell me why I'm wrong?
I don't think I could. He's my number 1. Tom Brady's the GOAT. I don't love the guy, but I respect him. And I think he's got, like you said, at least a solid year where he's got something to prove. And I don't know. There aren't many question marks on that team for me, at least, besides running back. And I think it's a great team as a whole. Their defense was really stout last year, especially against the run. And I just think that Tom Brady could do great things with the Bucks. And I don't think I could have said it better myself. You nailed all my points. Bruce Arians likes to air it out, pretty much everything. So I can't disagree.
Tom has been dropping the last 3 years, but Edin, who's your number 1?
I drew a goat. It's a horrible drawing, but I try to draw a goat. It's Tom Brady. I feel like I just had to put Tom Brady on here. I am not as optimistic fantasy-wise. I think he makes the biggest fantasy impact because the whole Patriots, they're just gone off my fantasy radar. And the Bucks, I'm not sure, and I might be, this might be debatable. I don't think it's going to make them better fantasy-wise. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans was injured, and Chris Godwin obviously had a breakout. With Jameis Winston, Jameis balled. And what I mean by balled, the stats were out of control, what he was throwing. What was it? 5,100 yards, 30 touchdowns? He 33 touchdowns, so he went wild. Obviously, 30 interceptions. I think Tom Brady, what he's going to do for the Bucs as a team, getting wins, going to the playoffs, potentially running for a Super Bowl. Who knows? It's there. Okay, so it's going to be all positive there. But fantasy is different than I think winning for a football team. Jameis Winston, 30 interceptions, for the wide receivers. That just means, we got to catch up. We got to throw more balls because now we got to catch up because all these pick sixes and he's throwing the ball away. So I don't think Tom Brady's going to have 5,000 yards. I'm not the touchdowns, maybe the yards. I don't think even close to that. So I think that wide receivers are going to suffer. They're going to be more efficient. They're going to be better. They're going to just play the game slower because they're not going to be throwing for their lives all the time with good old Winston throwing this 30 picks. So that's the reason I still have Tom Brady as number one. I think the fantasy impact is incredible what he's going to have for two teams. I just don't think it's as sunshine and rainbows for wide receivers compared to Winston.
No, I agree with you a lot there, Edin. That's why I had Tom at number 2. And I'm going to write down my number 1. I'm going to do a delayed reaction here.
Are you going to misspell DeAndre Hopkins?
No, I know how to spell DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins, and my handwriting is very third grade-esque for everyone watching this. I mean, first of all, this was the greatest trade in NFL history. Everyone I was listening to was saying that David Johnson was not going to be the starter for the Cardinals. It was going to be Kenyon Drake. He did not fit the scheme well. To trade David Johnson with how much he was getting paid, 3 years, $39 million, I believe, is his contract. A lot of people were saying that, 3-year, $39 million. A lot of people were saying that to get rid of that contract, they were going to have to pay part of it or give up a pick along with David Johnson. They managed to trade David Johnson and get value back. It's unbelievable. I mean, they're paying DeAndre Hopkins what they were paying David Johnson, and DeAndre Hopkins is a much, much better player in my mind. He's still younger than David Johnson, who's 28. He's proven it more. David Johnson's has injury issues, and he's going to be out there with Larry Fitzgerald, who is a workhorse, who is a constant professional, who's going to actually, I think, help DeAndre Hopkins become an even better player. And you're going to have Kenyon Drake catching the ball out of a backfield, forcing your linebackers to cheat up. DeAndre Hopkins runs great routes. So he gets past your corner, your linebackers are cheating up on Kenyon Drake, and it's going to leave the middle of the field wide open for DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald, who both are great running across the middle. And I just think it really turns that Cardinals offense into a great offense. That being said, I said a lot of similar things about Odell Beckham to the Browns, so we can't be 100% positive that it's going to work out as great as everyone thinks. But I think DeAndre Hopkins now becomes the number 2 fantasy receiver behind Michael Thomas. And I think this moves Kyler Murray to top 5 fantasy quarterback. I think it makes Larry Fitzgerald relevant for another season, which is unbelievable. This guy's been relevant for 20 years, it feels like. I think I was born the day that he made his first Pro Bowl. I mean, the guy's been unbelievable for ever, it feels like. The only other guy who's done it as long as him in history is Jerry Rice. And I think it makes Kenyon Drake better. I think the move makes the entire Cardinals offense better. And I think it was the best. I think it might go down in history as one of the best trades in NFL history, period.
Can't disagree.
Yes, not for the Texans. I can't disagree. So we got through all the free agency moves. I was wondering if anybody had maybe like a sleeper they were thinking, somebody who you could pick up late that might make a really big impact. I was going to go
out of free agency.
Yeah, out of free agency moves.
Gotcha.
I was going to go with mine first just because I thought of this. I think Emmanuel Sanders is getting older and people tend to forget about him. I think he's going to drop a bit if Kamara returns to form and Emmanuel Sanders is out there with Drew Brees and Michael Thomas drawing the double team and Drew Brees doesn't hone in on one guy, as any Marquise Colston fantasy owner in the past can tell you. Drew Brees, no matter how talented you are, he still likes to spread the ball out. God damn it. I think 2 or 3 years I wasted a first or second round pick on Marquise Colston. So I think Emmanuel Sanders is going to fall to the mid rounds, and I think he's going to be a very solid top 25 receiver this year. And I think his average draft position is not going to show that. Did you have any sleeper, anybody who just missed your list, Jared, that you think?
I covered just about my whole list. I mean, Melvin Gordon to the Broncos to an extent.
I hate that move. Just throwing that out there. I feel like it's way too filled of a running back backfield, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be a three-headed monster for sure, but what does that do for a guy like Austin Eckler?
Oh, I didn't even look at it that way. Yeah, but then Eckler's going to have Tyrod Taylor. Do you trust Taylor?
I trust to dump it off to Eckler a lot.
Yeah, right. I think Eckler's he's talented enough.
Yeah, that trade is bonkers. Melvin Gordon to the Broncos. It's gonna be a muddled backfield with Royce Freeman and Phillip Lindsay. I don't know what's gonna happen. But let's see, any other ones? Eric Ebron to the Steelers. That's a guy you can pick up real late, I'm pretty sure. If you look up on the other positions during your drafts.
I'm very, very high on the Steelers this year just because I still think Big Ben's got it. So we'll see. I could be wrong, but I still think he's got it. I think Juju Smith makes a big comeback. I think Connors makes a big comeback. I think Ebron is relevant this year on the Steelers. Well, why don't we kick it over to Edin and see who he likes?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple of people that just missed my list. I would say Phillip Rivers just missed my list. I think he's going to make that offense better. David Johnson for me. I know we had a debate off camera, but I 100% think he's top 25 running back. The talent's there as well. But I will say one. I drafted this guy in all my leagues, but he didn't pan out for me, is Darrell Henderson from the Rams. Okay. I think when he's in, he's an absolute difference maker. I don't know why they did not play him. I know they have Malcolm Brown getting in there, but I think Todd Gurley being pushed out enough and him having another year here, I think it'd be smart if you're thinking sleeper. When I think sleeper, somebody you barely draft in hopes that he's going to pan out. I think Darrell Henderson fits that mold very well, especially with Gurley out, especially with him having another year here to really solidify the offense. He's one of the most talented running backs I've seen in a while.
I had Todd Gurley in fantasy last year, and I kept Darrell Henderson the entire year. And put up points on my bench over and over again.
Same with me. I don't think I played him once, but when he was in, he was like yards per carry monster.
Completely forgot about him.
Yeah, I think that was a very good sleeper that a lot of people are forgetting about, and that's the knowledge you're going to get here. When you listen to Five Wide, we're going to pull some guys out that you forgot about. I think we don't really have time probably to get into the other debates. I think that was a pretty good free agency debate if everyone else is feeling good. I think we're start to end this. But I want to know, do we want to come out with signature outros? Does anyone want to come out with a saying they're going to do before they leave?
Not today. I want it to be fantastic and incredible. I want it to be life-changing. I just can't think of it at the moment.
That might be a good outro. My outro is fantastic. It's life-changing. It's incredible. I just haven't thought of it in the moment. Talk to you guys later.
Bye, everyone.
See you, Edin. Jared, you want to say goodbye? You there, Jared? Okay, I guess Jared left too. So I am going to give my outro. Talk to you guys later. Have a good week and listen to us if you want to know all the best fantasy moves.